What is up, guys? It's Jimbo here, currently diving deep into the heavens of Valhalla with this guy.
Boy.
Yes, I'm super late on this, but I finally got a chance to play the new Valhalla DLC the last couple of days, and why not dive in? Because seriously, how? And I repeat, how is this DLC free? God of War Ragnarok is a game that I've already reviewed on the channel. In that review, I called it a masterpiece in storytelling, in gameplay, and my overall enjoyment of the game. But I was not expecting a DLC for this game almost a year on from launch. We've already had a new game plus and a countless amount of updates to the main game to make it a little bit better. But Santa Monica Studios have been cooking.
I can see what they're doing, what he's doing. I can see it, I feel it. He's cooking.
Valhalla is a roguelite mode, but with all the tasty combat of Ragnarok, which even a year on still holds up. Weapons feel impactful, the combo options between axe, spear, and the blades of chaos and your rage meter are still tight. And my first initial thought was, well, how am I going to feel jumping back into the rhythm of the game again? That lasted all about 5 minutes because it was super easy to get back into the combat of this game. It's so satisfying and the combat loop is satisfying. It's just easy to fall into. I don't need to talk any more about the gameplay of Ragnarok because it's amazing and I still think it's incredible. So how does Valhalla actually work? What does it do to expand on the God of War universe? How does the roguelite work? And all of the above. You receive an invitation to Valhalla, which introduces us to the mode and its story. We are presented with a door to Valhalla, and in typical Kratos fashion, he forces his way inside using brute force. But it leaves us with a curse and the inability to gain our health back, and strips us of all of our powers and skills from the main campaign, leaving us at 0. This also introduces us to the first roguelike elements of the mode. You will die at some point during this first section, and it will throw you into the shore, and you basically start from there. But it's not just here is a roguelike mode in God of War. There is a meaningful story here. Before I continue, I do want to say massive spoilers for if you've not finished the main game of Ragnarok, you have been warned. The premise of the DLC is that Freya has asked Kratos at the end of the campaign to be the new God of War on her council. Kratos is apprehensive because, look what happened the last time he was a God of War. This leads us to venturing further into Valhalla because Kratos needs to think upon his past actions before making a decision. As you progress through the DLC, you will encounter different enemies and bosses you have faced before, but you'll also see different aspects of ancient Greece and Kratos' former life. Helios returns from the previous games, mocking and giving some interesting dialogue in between encounters. Mimir is also there as well, but eventually you'll make it through and find the person who invited you to this all. That is Tyr. And if you are familiar with the God of War Ragnarok campaign, this is the actual Tyr, not a disguised Tyr, the former god of war in the Norse realm. He invited Kratos to challenge his mind and past actions. In doing so, you will fight Tyr as some sort of end boss for the runs within the mode. And I won't say much more outside of that. These are some really good fights, and I recommend listening to all the dialogue for all of this. And the massive undertones from the entire DLC's story, including the conversations with Mimir, Helios, Freya, and Tyr, and even some of the Valkyries, is that Kratos is healing from past trauma that he caused to many, many people, and what was caused to him through actions that he just had to do. He died a couple of times, which is kind of traumatic. Redemption and closure seems to be the most fitting words, and that you realize you are not the person that you used to be, but recognizing what you have done to move forward in your life. Hindsight is a wonderful thing that we all can have, and I think this helps Kratos get to this point of renewal, but I want to save that for you to go and play and experience for yourself. I'll be honest, This story hits very close to home, as there are a lot of themes of parenthood, growth, and protection in the two main campaigns of the games, but for this specific DLC, I felt very connected as it deals with Kratos healing his mind and processing trauma, similar to many people that have had battles and continues to have battles with mental health. I've had a fair share myself, so seeing Kratos go through all of this and discover things and experience it with him was really satisfying, and it brought a tear to my eye. I really think you need to experience this just from a story standpoint, even if you're not sold on the gameplay, especially if you struggled with any trauma or mental health battles yourself. Props to the Santa Monica team for absolutely nailing this. You may be thinking, well, that's all good, Jimbo, but what is the roguelite gameplay? What is a roguelite? How does the DLC work? Well, allow me to explain. A roguelite's core gameplay is centered around runs or attempts, whatever you feel best to call them. You go as far as you can, beating enemies and bosses, higher level enemies, all that type of stuff. You get to the end and you either die and go back to the beginning, keeping specific currencies and upgrades that allow you to have permanent upgrades for your future runs, and then you continue that, hopefully being able to get to the end and beat the final boss and ultimately complete the game. This is apparent in Valhalla, but they do things slightly different. In some sense, this is a roguelite, light at least in the way I call it. It's not as punishing as some of the previous games that I've played in the roguelite genre, but you start out in the first two rooms, grabbing chests and defeating enemies in this room, and that kind of starts you on your journey. In these chests will give you a variety of different options. You have perk glyphs, which give you obviously boosts to specific actions you do, stat glyphs, which are simple as stats such as attack power, defense, luck, cooldown, etc. Weapon perks that allow you to make your weapon stronger, maybe upgrade your weapons and such, add more skills to them, etc. Runic attacks, which are be light and heavy, which are the ones that you would use in the main game, your special attacks. You would then have a mixed glyph, which just basically gives you a random assortment of the other ones that I've just previously mentioned. And then there's also refills to health and rage, which also come across sometimes after boss battles. The other chests that you can open throughout the game, and also the vases that are around in the different areas, are all to do with the currency made in the game. Fleeting echoes are your main source of currency during the runs themselves, where you can get it and you can get upgrades to whatever you're using. You can refill health at the specific tablet that's in the game. There's also the ability to open higher reward chests in certain sections that you have to spend them to be able to get there. And these upgrades are not permanent, so when you die or complete a run, they will go away. However, Mastery Seals, Spirit Seals, and Divine Triumphs are all currencies that can be used outside of a run to get permanent upgrades for future runs, such as increasing your starting health, rage, better rewards from chests, increasing the value of the runics that will come in. Instead of a level 1 runic attack, you'll get a level 2. And then also having resurrection stones, keys for additional things that you can do during your attempts. These keys can be opened up like special doors that will give you additional chests, etc, etc. To boil it down into its simplest form, you go into a run, fight, get rewards, beat Valhalla's Chosen in order to ascend to the upper levels. Each time you ascend to the upper levels, you will fight a boss from Kratos' past and get extra rewards for beating them, allowing you to progress. Rinse, repeat until eventually you get to tier, beat tier, and that will complete a run. There is a really cool section where you end up fighting in this like smaller areas, but they're also quite large as well, that have portals that is in ancient Greece. And not only have there been a whole bunch of enemies here, Santa Monica have taken the time to add additional enemies from the previous trilogy, such as harpies, cyclopses, minotaurs, undead legionnaires, and even wraiths. They are welcome additions to combat and they don't feel out of place at all, and it adds some variety in who you will be facing. Each reward that you get can increase in value as you go further through the runs. For example, you can get a divine perk, which is like a super legendary version of a perk. You can get a gold perk instead of a silver one, and so on. But there's also an added bonus of a tablet that will cause a temporary debuff to you, but only for a few encounters. You do that and it will allow you to get a big reward for suffering with the drawbacks of said debuff, whether it's a runic attack or a really cool perk. It's a neat feature to add. Now that you know how everything plays and how the story will unfold, the age-old question, is it good, comes into play. Yes, 100% unequivocally yes. I mentioned earlier that this is a roguelite light because from the start of the DLC, you can pick your difficulty from the easiest to the most brutal difficulty that the game has the option. That is different to a lot of other roguelites that I have played. Then the game gets a little bit harder as you progress through naturally. I played on the middle difficulty and it did get very difficult towards the end. I had to take a couple of runs to be able to get to the final encounter. But if you play on the highest setting, you'll get even better rewards. So there's a reward there if you want to challenge yourself. So it's a win-win for, the hardcore players that I eat a bowl of nails for breakfast type folks. And then the people that I'm just jumping into this for the first time to check out the DLC and I'm not familiar with the mode before. And by no means is this game, or the DLC I should say, a walkover. But the thing I love the most about this DLC is that it's simple enough to grasp without having to really focus on too much else. The combat is really tight, which made me want to keep playing and have so much fun during my different fights, different combos and messing around and stuff as I've previously mentioned. And after beating the DLC, you can actually go in and continue to play, unlock all the upgrades, hey, even try it on a harder difficulty. There's just extra hours there for you to enjoy. What is more mind-blowing to me is that this DLC is free. Providing you obviously have the base game, which you need to be able to play this, the DLC is free and it's packed with so much content that it is not just a cheap add-on or a story progression for the sake of it. Everything down to the roguelite mode itself, the small lines of dialogue, and the really impactful cinematic cutscenes that you will have, the progression system that they've decided to take, and even Santa Monica's take on the roguelite genre. In a world where every single company is trying to find ways to take your money and the cost of like skins in games is like 10 to 15 pounds or dollars just for a cosmetic, this is very welcome. I could have easily paid for this, but Santa Monica was just like, here guys, here's a really cool roguelite thing. Oh, and some really good cinematic cutscenes that we added to the base game of God of War. It's just what we've been working on the past year. This is without doubt one of the best DLCs that I have ever played. And I don't say that to be obtuse or hype something up. This script that I wrote in 40 minutes because I was that hyped to talk about the game and my experience. I just wish that I had more time to have played it earlier and spent more time after the fact, because there's so many games out and there's so many things I need to catch up on that I haven't been able to put extra time into this. But I do highly recommend that you play God of War Ragnarok Valhalla. It's completely free, so go and download it right now. But if you have played it, leave a comment in the comment section and tell me what you think of it. If you're thinking about checking out God of War Ragnarok, I highly recommend you do that as well. Leave a like on the video if you are new to the channel, and also subscribe as well if you enjoyed this content. Click on the notification bell to be notified when I bring out any new content. And as always, this has been It's Jimbo, and I'll see you guys next time.